When most people think of Cuba, they picture music, cigars, and colorful vintage cars. But the real story of Cuba lies in the faces of its people, a story written in their DNA. Cuba is one of the most ethnically diverse nations in the Caribbean. It was shaped by 3 continents: Europe, Africa, and the Americas. Spanish settlers, enslaved Africans, and indigenous Taíno people all mixed together on this island. Later, Chinese and Middle Eastern immigrants added new layers. The result? A country where almost everyone is mixed to some degree, even if they don't identify that way. Let's start with DNA. A 2014 study estimated the average Cuban ancestry as 72% European, 20% African, 8% Native American. These percentages are not limited to one group, they are spread across the population. Even Cubans who identify as white usually carry African and indigenous ancestry, and Cubans who identify as black often have large amounts of European ancestry. This proves that mixed ancestry is the norm in Cuba, not the exception. The Cuban census divides the population into 64% white, 9.3% black, 26.6% mulatto or mestizo. But the DNA evidence shows something different. In reality, most Cubans, whether they identify as white, black, or mixed, carry a blend of ancestries. According to the census, about 2/3 of Cubans identify as white. Most trace their ancestry to Spain, especially Andalusia, Galicia, and the Canary Islands. These settlers came in waves during the 18th, 19th, and early 20th centuries. White Cubans generally resemble Southern Europeans, light to olive skin, wavy or straight hair, and brown, green, or even blue eyes. But genetic studies show that many white-identifying Cubans also carry small but noticeable amounts of African or indigenous ancestry. This means their appearance can vary widely, with subtle traits that reflect Cuba's mixed history. After the 1959 revolution, many white Cubans emigrated to the United States, especially Miami and Puerto Rico, forming an influential diaspora. About 9.3% of Cubans identify as black. Their roots go back to the transatlantic slave trade, when Africans were brought mainly from West and Central Africa, places like Angola, Nigeria, and the Congo, to work on sugar plantations. Black Cubans often have darker skin tones, curly or coiled hair, and features reflecting African ancestry. But here again, DNA shows that most black-identifying Cubans also have significant European ancestry, sometimes over 50%. This creates a wide range of appearances, from deep African features to more blended traits. Black Cubans are concentrated in the east, Santiago de Cuba and Guantanamo, though Havana also has a large Afro-Cuban community. Now let's talk about the group officially recognized as mulatto or mestizo, about 26.6% of the population. But remember, DNA shows that most Cubans are mixed. Even outside this category, mixed Cubans display the full spectrum. Some appear almost European but with indigenous bone structure. Others have medium brown skin and wavy hair, blending African and European traits. Others lean toward African features but carry lighter skin or straighter hair. In rural areas, you often see more indigenous influence, while in cities like Havana, the blending of African and European is more visible. This group, officially a quarter of the country, but in reality the majority, reflects Cuba's tricontinental heritage. Most clearly before colonization, Cuba was home to the Taíno, an Arawakan-speaking indigenous people. Disease and assimilation nearly wiped them out, but their legacy is still visible. DNA shows 8% of Cuban ancestry is Native American. This is strongest in eastern and rural regions. Traits like straight black hair, reddish undertones in skin, and certain facial shapes are linked to Taíno heritage. Cultural practices like farming techniques and food traditions also carry Taíno influence. Cuba also received smaller waves of immigration that left a mark. Chinese immigrants arrived in the 19th century, forming Havana's Chinatown. Middle Eastern and Jewish immigrants came in the early 20th century, though in smaller numbers. These groups mixed with Cubans, adding even more variety to the genetic landscape. Cuba's admixture varies by region. Western Cuba, Havana, Pinar del Rio, more European ancestry, lighter phenotypes. Eastern Cuba, Santiago, Guantanamo, more African ancestry, darker phenotypes. Interior rural areas, stronger indigenous ancestry. This explains why Cubans from different parts of the island can look so different, even if they share the same national identity. On any street in Havana, you'll see a light-skinned Cuban with green eyes and Spanish features, a darker-skinned Cuban with Afro-Caribbean traits, a mixed Cuban with tan skin, wavy hair, and indigenous bone structure. They all share Cuban identity, but their faces tell the story of centuries of mixing. Cuba is not just white, not just black, and not just mixed. It is all three at once. The official census says 64% white, 9% black, 27% mixed. But the DNA tells a deeper truth: 72% European, 20% African, 8% Native American, spread across nearly everyone. This means that almost all Cubans, no matter how they identify, are products of blending. Cuba is a living mosaic, a nation where the past of Europe, Africa, and the Americas is written not just in history books, but in the faces and DNA of its people. If you found this exploration of Cuban DNA DNA and ancestry interesting, make sure to subscribe to @Ethnic Exploration for more deep dives into the genetic history of peoples around the world. See you next time.